in that period of the Punic Wars, wow, they were the feat of shipbuilding and engineering.
Quinquereme apparently had 5 banks of oars. Now, there's been some debate exactly how that worked, but it is believed that there were 3 levels with 5 guys, 2 on the top 2 levels, each with an oar, and then 1 guy at the bottom. Whatever the case, it was a bigger, larger version of the trireme. However, even though it's a bigger version, the tactics involved in naval warfare are exactly the same. The main purpose of these ships is to ram the enemy's ship. That's what they were engineered for.
Outfitted with a bronze-covered ram, they were designed for speed and maneuverability.
These were very, very, very quick. Trying to catch a Carthaginian warship was trying to hit Muhammad Ali in his prime as a boxer.
A standard quinquereme was roughly 120 feet long, 9 to 16 feet wide, and could hold up to 420 sailors. Fully manned and loaded, a quinquereme weighed more than 100 tons. On open water, these mega ships were killing machines.
This thing is just coming straight at you at a speed you've never dreamt of as possible, and bang! The whole of your boat shakes, your ship shakes, and you start to sink. Compare that with the trireme, where often the model was probably much more to engage with the enemy ship and have land fight at sea. The Carthaginians didn't mess about like that. They wanted to get in, they hit you once and you drown, and they're gone. To hit the next one, deadly.
Now, the genius of the Carthaginians was in figuring out how to mass-produce these ships. They took sort of prefabricated parts and put them all together on an assembly line. So to an enemy, no sooner would a quinquereme be sunk than another one would appear on the horizon. And this was a distinct disadvantage for the Roman Navy until they came upon a wrecked quinquereme, and they sort of reverse-engineered it. They deconstructed it, figured out how it was put together, put it back together, and made it their own.
They captured a grounded Carthaginian quinquereme and made dozens of copies of these. In fact, the copies weren't as well made and were made out of green wood, and after one season they fell to pieces. But never mind, that's all the time the Romans needed to turn the tide.
The Roman and Carthaginian fleets would now square off with the ancient world's equivalent of weapons of mass destruction to see who truly owned the seas. March 10th, 241 BC, the fleets met at the Agates Islands off the western coast of Sicily for one of the greatest sea battles of all time.
In the hostilities of the First Punic War, the Battle of the Agates Islands, fought off the coast of Sicily, was a turning point.
In the battle between 2 brilliantly engineered fleets, Carthage had the advantage in numbers. But their sleek killing machines were bloated with grain and supplies for Hamilcar's army, camped out on nearby Sicily.
Many ships were sunk or lost or captured. People weren't expecting that.
Now, the Carthaginians try to make a break for it, but they are unable to do so because of this extra weight. That gives the Romans the victory.
It was a strategic disaster. In the end, the Romans took nearly 30,000 Carthaginian prisoners. With no way of resupplying himself and his troops, Hamilcar was forced to surrender and retreat back to Carthage. It was clear the pendulum of power in the Mediterranean was now swinging ominously toward Rome. In victory, Rome gained not only Sicily, but also Carthage's holdings on Corsica, Sardinia, and the islands between Sicily and Africa. Hoping to cripple Carthage, Rome forced it to pay a large tribute. But Carthage was not ready to give up yet. It turned westward to Spain to generate new wealth.
And the Carthaginians send Hamilcar Barca to Spain, so his goal in 237 is to conquer as much of Spain as possible.
It took 9 hard-fought years for Hamilcar to conquer the native tribes there. When he finally did, all of the land south of the Ebro River becomes part of the Carthaginian Empire. But Hamilcar paid for that conquest with his life. In 228 BC, he was killed in battle with a rebelling native tribe.
Hamilcar's death in Spain was a great blow to Carthage, but it was by no means the end of Carthage. In fact, it opened the way for a whole new initiative.
Legend has it that Hamilcar's 9-year-old son begged to watch his father lead Carthage into battle with Spain, and the father agreed on one condition, that the son would promise eternal hatred of Rome and commitment to that republic's defeat. And it was thus the son, named Hannibal, became the instrument of his father's revenge. And this was the first step on a path that would transform Hannibal into the most devastating foe that the Republic of Rome would ever face.
In 1969, archaeologists discovered a sunken Punic warship with cannabis on board. It's thought the herb was brewed into a tea to calm rowers' nerves. 211 BC, a specter is haunting the Republic of Rome. Outside her walls, with an army poised to strike, is the man Romans fear and loathe above all, Hannibal, the great general of Carthage. Brilliant, brutal, sophisticated, he is Rome's worst nightmare. As if by magic, Hannibal has penetrated Rome's defenses. But the magic is actually Hannibal's strategic genius, and the use he makes of one of the world's greatest engineering corps.
There's no doubt in my mind that Hannibal wasn't one of the greatest generals in history. I think demonstrably he is the greatest general in history.
Hannibal's genius is born of a near religious zeal to destroy Rome, handed down to him by his father. In 221 BC, he was given the tools to do it. At the age of 26, he took command of the Carthaginian army.
Hannibal was certainly Hamilcar's son. He was a crafty politician, a brilliant strategist and military man, but his real genius was in knowing when to use all of the great engineering developments that Carthage had at its disposal.
As a commander of ironclad courage, he would launch one of the most stunning campaigns of aggression the world had ever seen. Rome had gained control of the Mediterranean, meaning Hannibal could not reach his enemy by sea. Driven to fulfill the vow he had made to his father to destroy Rome, Hannibal set out to do the impossible. He'd march over land, across the Alps, to the heart of the Roman Empire.
Now, Hannibal knows he's greatly outnumbered. He knows he has a relatively small army in comparison to the Romans, but he does come up with a strategy which he believes will bring him victory. And what he has to do is take his army to Italy itself and attack the Romans on their home field.
Hannibal set off in 218 BC with an army of 90,000 men, 12,000 horses, and 37 elephants acquired from African neighbors to the south.
Elephants have been used in battle for centuries before this. They could be the turning point in a battle because the cavalry of the enemy could not withstand elephants. Therefore, Hannibal believes it's worth it to try to get these elephants to Italy.
By October, they'd traveled more than 600 miles and came face to face with their first major obstacle, the raging Rhone River in France.
Even at its narrowest, shallowest time of the year, the Rhone River is still going to be somewhere between 100 to 150 to 200 meters wide. It's going to be daunting to all of Hannibal's field engineers.
On the other side, a large number of Gauls were waiting to do battle. But the wall of water was a potentially deadly obstacle that had to be vanquished first. Hannibal's builders would have to conquer Mother Nature.
Not only are the engineering feats daunting, but you also have crowds of insubordinate and hostile tribes waiting on the other side of the river.
The solution would be one of Carthage's most spectacular feats of engineering. A series of giant rafts large enough to shuttle animals and supplies across the river in record time.
These rafts were about 200 feet long and 50 feet wide. Now that means that you can't just use one single tree trunk. You have to also put multiple trees together and then lash those together too. This requires more than a Boy Scout knowledge of knots.
With speed and efficiency, Hannibal's soldiers harvested massive conifers from the surrounding forests and connected the trees together with rope. One thing his engineers had to account for was the psyche of the elephants. So once the logs were bound together, the barges were piled high with a layer of sticks and a layer of earth so that the elephants would think they were on solid ground.